I'm just doing me and singing about my life, while the other artists are singing about my life. So more power to me.
First and foremost, free the whole world, boss. I am your gracious host, Caspian Montgomery. Welcome, Gaza Nation. Today is oh so glorious because our Great Gaza Leader has released new material, and as I tend to do when he releases a new song, I break open a bottle of the finest cognac and dive into the lyrics and the melodies. The name of this song is Deso It Day, and we will be explaining it to the patois illiterate. I cannot say enough about this song. It is literally the greatest song I've ever heard in my entire life. Teacher, please begin.
Welcome the world great, make your girl skate. Back way, trap the drawers, make the skirt stay. See him some ram dance all from the first day. Still sick, fuck red cross, fuck first aid.
Adi, the innocent, begins the first verse by telling us to welcome him because he is the world's greatest artist. He then tells us that he could take any man's woman away from him, and he will take her and tell her to turn around and take her panties down but leave her skirt on, so I am assuming that he is going in for a quickie. The boss then tells us that he is still the same living legend that came into dancehall and changed the face of it forever. He also reiterates that he is still lyrically inclined, and neither First Aid nor the Red Cross could ever repair him. He will always be the greatest. Remember that.
So fucking high, every bird freed. Bad slave when they sign to no workplace. Merman have the bomb of them when make the earth shake. Serious, me will fuck your gal before the first date.
One Dawn then tells us that he is so high off the marijuana plant that birds are afraid of him. And I would be too if I was a bird and I saw the world boss flying next to me. He then tells us that he is not the typical slave of today's society. He does not sign into a workplace. He is a special man. He makes music for a living. And then he tells us that his music will make the entire earth shake. Every time he drops a song, the entire earth shakes up. He then makes sure that we know of his prowess with the women and tells us that he could have sexual relations with a woman before they even go on the first date. Now think of that. He can tell her, come over, have sex with me, and if I like you, I might take you out on a date. That is power defined. And with that line, we have reached the glorious Deso It Day chorus.
Take party girl side of me. Money talk more grand than finalist. Pull up over hell, shag up in a dish. We no damn dog and no China this. Yo, what that's how it done. That's how it done. That's how it done. Well, that's how it done. That's how it done.
The Exiled Pharaoh begins this tremendously powerful chorus by telling us that on the side of him is a woman with an extremely large gluteus maximus. He then tells us that money can buy you the finest things in life, and an example is this woman. And then he tells us that he has attended Hellshire Beach, and I looked it up online. I was looking at pictures just now, and it was just a beautiful beach, and he does something in music that is quite rare and quite tough. It is called the triple entendre. He says that he does not eat dogs because he is not from China. And if you do not know, China partakes in the cooking and eating of canines, and most other countries around the world do not. So the triple entendre, if I will, is he might be pulling up to Hellshire Beach and instead of going in his own community and hustling, he might be pulling up and looking for some food, some money on Hellshire Beach because it has quite a lot of tourists. So instead of eating off his own community, they might go hustle out there and get some of the foreigners' money, which is well deserved. And then it could also mean that he's pulling up to Hellshire Beach and there's quite a lot of pretty women out, and they are looking like a plate of food, but World Boss does not partake in cunnilingus. If you know World Boss, we all know this, so it could mean that. And lastly, it just might mean that he is hungry and Hellshire Beach provides some of the best meals. He then repeats the phrase, Deso it day, and I had trouble just translating this into English properly. So if anybody in the comments section would like to correct me, feel free to do so, but I believe it is just saying it is what it is. It is what it always will be. I just am the greatest ever.
Yeah, pull up in at the beam, I don't appear. From flanker to gully, Glen Dever, know you stay. Gaza, them a say me overrate. I just great me overgrate.
The dancehall king begins the second verse by telling us that he is taking a trip to Montego Bay in a BMW. He then shouts out various places in Montego Bay, Flankers, Gully, Glendivon, and he says, what do you guys say? And the proper response, as always, is Gaza. He then says, which I find quite funny, that some people think that he is overrated, and I do not know who those people are, but they are bad mind. And he says that they say that he is just great. So think of that. Even the people who say he's overrated still have to see his greatness, but they just say he's great, but he is over great. He's the greatest ever. He's the best to ever do it. Remember that.
From I was a sperm, we touch the egg, we ovulate. Boy, no got no gal, Mr. Bait. Balladonia, so we straight. From Portmore City to the world, King of Rain.
Mr. Palmer then says that he is great since the day of birth, and you must meds upon this. You must think about this. He's saying that from the day he was a sperm, he won the race. He beat out billions of other sperms to the egg to be placed on this earth, and we all did that. So big up yourselves. He then says that if a man is not coupled up with a woman, then that man is a fish. That man is bait. And all that comes into my head with that phrase is boom bye bye in a batty boy's head. And then he says that he is straighter than Balladonia. And Balladonia is a small roadhouse community in Australia along the straightest stretch of highway in all of Australia, probably the straightest in the world. And that is just quite the genius line. I had to look it up, as World Boss often makes me do. Thank you for educating us, teacher. He then says that from Portmore City, Jamaica, to the rest of the world, the king will reign. And that is the truth.
Big batty girl side of me, money talk more grander finalist. Pull up over El Shago find a dish. We no damn dog and no China this. Yo, what Deso with them? Deso with them, Deso with them. Well, Deso with them, Deso with them.
I would like to take this time to say that if this is a preview of what's to come on the upcoming Exiled Pharaoh album, I believe that this is just another cornerstone in the World Boss's legendary career. We all must remember that this man is incarcerated and is pulling off feats that people with full freedom are never going to ever even see in their lifetime. This is part of the reason why he is the greatest. He has the greatest work ethic the world has ever known. He has the most hits the world has ever known. And I would like to make one quick point before we move on to the third verse. When World Boss says something, the reason why it is so special is because you can actually believe his lyrics, and that is the rarest. The only other artist that comes to mind is Jay-Z. When Jay-Z says he has a Bugatti, he actually has a Bugatti, and we know that. When World Boss says he has a Benz, we actually know that he has the Benz. These are some of the reasons which make up the greatest artist on earth, and World Boss is the greatest among the greats.
Me are the best to ever do it, and you know it. Stop read Shakespeare, I'm the poet. Murder everybody on the track, Jesse Owen. Way above the others, to be honest.
The dancehall hero begins the third and final verse with a meteor headed straight for Earth. This is one of my favorite verses of all time. He says that he is the greatest to ever do it, and you know it. He's talking to all the other artists on Earth. They even know that he is the greatest. He then says, stop reading Shakespeare, because he is the poet. And after I heard this line, I went to my library, I grabbed all of my Shakespeare plays, I burned them, spit on them, and then I said, Gaza for life. He then says that he will murder anyone upon the track, and then references the great, the legendary, the explosive, the Olympian gold medalist, Jesse Owens, and that is just quite the entendre. He is saying that he will murder anyone on the musical forefront, and we all know that they are called tracks when we put them out. So he is saying that he is the Jesse Owens of dancehall, and it is just such a great line. He's educating all the young people that do not know who Jesse Owens is. I'm sure they had to look it up, but I've always been quite a big fan of Jesse. And then he says that if he has to be honest, he is just way above all the others, and to some that might seem a little braggadocio, but when something is the truth, it doesn't have the same effect. So that is the truth. So it doesn't sound like he is bragging, because he is just stating a fact.
Freestyle time, but for dollars, $50. Now tell me for more money, give your problems. Give me the loot, Christopher Wallace. Fear and no fear, any king or any palace. We are the bodies.
The teacher then says that it is freestyle time, and I hope that Vybz Kartel confirms this with me, but did he actually freestyle these last 4 bars? He says it is freestyle time, but it is for the dollars. That means that he is getting paid even if he decided to freestyle the last 4 bars. That is very deep. He then says that the more money that you make, the more problems that you have, and this is a well-known, classical, notorious B.I.G. song. He then continues with the theme and says, give me the loot, Christopher Wallace. And for those who do not know, Christopher Wallace is the legendary Biggie from Brooklyn, Bedford-Stuyvesant. He is one of my favorite artists on earth. So let's tie those together. He says, the more money, the more problems that you have, but I am willing to take on those problems, so give me the money. Just like 2 Christopher Wallace songs, just mind-blowing lyricism right there. And he finally finishes up by saying that he is the exiled pharaoh, and pharaohs are not afraid of any kings, nor are they afraid of any palaces, any person on earth that thinks that they are in control. They are nothing to the exiled pharaoh. And then, which I believe should make Gaza extremely ecstatic, is he says, we are the baddest. And that means Gaza Nation is the baddest. And he is our leader. And with that last line, we have reached the end of another Vybz Kartel masterpiece. Please like, subscribe, and comment and share these videos, not for Caspian Montgomery, but for Deja Azim Palmer. Freedom is a must, and I pray that it is tomorrow. I will not take up any more of your precious time. So until we meet again, Gaza mi say forever.
Big batty girl side of me, money talk more grander finalist. Pull up over El Shago find a dish. We know them dog and no China this. Yo, what Deso with them? Deso with them, Deso with them. Well, Deso with them, Deso with them.